5:50 at KLIF. There's a zombie workforce among us. Our colleagues are like walking zombies at work.
Yeah, and this is, of course, a bigger problem on Monday than any other day of the week, I think. I'm pretty sure of it. I've always thought that people just need to stop with the jokes and the complaining and the Facebook apps, with the funny apps, with the little kid that looks bleary-eyed and stuff. That makes it worse. We're just getting the mindset that we should hate Monday and that we should hate our jobs.
But there are a lot of people that don't like their jobs, unfortunately.
Well, that's true. And we wanted to talk about that, so we found ourselves a workplace culture expert. Jerry Acuff is his name. Jerry, good morning.
Good morning, David and Amy. How are y'all?
Just fine. And it is a good morning, even though it's Monday.
Well, every morning is a good morning, man.
Well, there's a new study out that shows the majority of us just aren't engaged with our jobs, and it could be as many as 40% of workers just don't want to be there. Why do you think this is the case?
Leadership's terrible. The reality is that first place, people are wrong for some jobs, and so that's a hiring issue. And so, candidly, a lot of companies are not very good at identifying people that are really a great fit. I mean, they're in a hurry to hire somebody. They get intoxicated with somebody on an interview, and they hire them, and then they find out, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months later, the person's not perfect, and then it's difficult to move on them. It's difficult for the other person because they need the money. But the big issue here is really leadership. Now, the truth is, 17% of employees are disengaged. I mean, they've completely checked out. 55% are not engaged, and they're at some level of, lack of engagement. Only a third are engaged. And so, but if you think about it, 8 out of 10 small businesses fail. Now, some of them fail because the idea is bad, but a lot of them fail because they're just not managed well. And if you look at big companies, I mean, we do lots of work with big companies, and I'm not going to call any names, but I would say not more than a third of them are well managed. And so if you have, leaders who don't make sure that every worker understands that, the reason they're working here is not just for the money, that they don't connect in some way with the purpose, then they're never going to be thrilled about working there. All of these, working zombies are fundamentally people that have, in their own mind, say it to themselves, I have no future here. I've lost my passion and my zeal for work. And basically, they just live paycheck to paycheck. But it's leadership's job to make sure that doesn't happen.
Let me guess. The key to good leadership I think it would have to start and end with just being a people person. Just showing an occasional word that shows some interest in a person's life.
Oh, I think it's 100% that. I wrote 3 best-selling books called The Relationship Edge in Business, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a company or whether you're talking about individuals. Everybody wants to feel important. The easiest way to make somebody feel important is to actually listen to them. But I tell people, when I first got in management years ago, I had a team of 12 people, and we had the number one district out of 70, 7 out of 8 years. But then people say to me, well, what did you do? And I said, I did 2 things. Number one, I love my people. And I don't mean, wanting to date them. My God, nowadays you go to jail for that. But
Thanks,
I mean,
Harvey.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I really cared enough about them to want them to succeed. And I would tell them when they started, look, my job is to make it hard for you to fail. I want you to succeed in this role. I want you to succeed in this company, and I want you to succeed in life. And my job as your leader is to help you do that. Now, that means that sometimes I'm going to kick you in the fanny, and sometimes I'm going to be praising the heck out of you. But all the time, I'm going to be trying to help you get better. Now, how do you help you get better?
I was just going to ask you that because not everyone has a great boss like you. And as an employee, how do you try to get your passion for your job back?
Well, one thing is you ought to have a conversation with your boss and tell him you don't have the passion that you wish you had. I mean, I believe that if you want your ship to come in, send one out. And so, go tell him, I wish I had more passion for my work. How can I find a way to get more involved here so that some of my talents actually really, really matter? There's a great book called Leadership is an Art by Max Dupree, and the first chapter is The Millwright Died. And basically he goes to the wake of this millwright who was the most important person in the company. And the millwright, his wife asked him to stay and read some poetry. So he stayed there, and at the end he said, "Gosh, that's the most beautiful poetry I've ever heard. Who wrote it?" And she said, "My husband." And he said, he left, he said to himself, was the poet a millwright or was a millwright a poet? Our job as leaders is to get people to bring their greatness to work. But you don't do that if you don't create an inspiring, motivating climate and environment. And the biggest and the easiest way to do that is create a learning environment. When I became a manager, I told everybody that worked for me, I said, look, as long as we're together, every single time we get together, we're going to start our meeting the same way. I'm going to ask you what you're doing to develop yourself as a human being, and I expect you to have an answer. Now, it took me about a year before they realized, hey, the short, fat guy's not going to stop asking these questions. And so they started getting serious about learning. And I said, I don't care if you're learning to be a better Boy Scout leader or deacon in your church or whether you're trying to get promoted. I want you to be improving yourself.
Right.
And when you create a learning culture in a company, you create inspiration, passion, motivation, and most companies are terrible at that.
All right. Well, you're so good at what you do. You're getting me all fired up. But we got to go right now. But, Jerry, thank you, and I want to talk with you again in the future, okay? You'll find JerryAcuff.com. He's a best-selling author, speaker, sales leadership trainer. Look him up, Jerry Acuff.